Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again on this Friday morning is Shea Dixon. Shea, how you doing? How's everything going?
Doing well, rocking along. One more game till the bye and a late bye week. This has got to be one of
Yeah.
the last in college football, which is traditional for LSU to have right before Bama, but rocking along.
Yeah, it is weird when you think about that. The other day, I was like, damn, they're going to have played 8 straight games, going through this year. That's not easy. Usually you would like it a little earlier in the season to kind of help them get through some injuries, but uh, I, I don't know. From an injury perspective, I don't know how much it would have helped at this point, but you get it before Bama, so I guess that's the positive. But we'll obviously be previewing LSU versus Ole Miss here. There's a lot to this game that I'm really interested to talk about. I've written about it. I wrote about it on Wednesday in a preview piece. I did a final line story today, kind of giving my thoughts on the game and how I think it could play out. So check that out on the site. But Shay, I guess we should start with the injury report. You were there. You talked to Kelly yesterday. You asked about Armani Goodwin. Do you want to give us a rundown of Goodwin and anybody else that stands out?
Well, the big thing was Goodwin, right? I mean, Goodwin had a hamstring injury that went from like he scored twice in that New Mexico game, and then he had a hamstring injury, and then he didn't come back. And then what did Kelly say after the game? He was like, "Oh, it's just a hamstring injury. We'll monitor it." Then that next week, he was like, "It was more severe than we thought." And then yesterday, when I asked him about it, he said Armani practiced all week and looked great. And then he called out Bo Lowry, not in a negative way, in a positive way, and the LSU medical and training staff, and said they were actually able to do it. He was like, after the season, y'all have to get the full story there. It's a great, it's unbelievable what they did. But they did some surgical procedure, I guess, involving the hamstring or whatever injury he had. And Kelly said that bumped the timeline way up, and now he looks completely healthy. So I don't know how much they've been what Matty B, a running back by committee type thing, kind of almost just like a
Yeah.
rotation nonstop. But I still feel like Goodwin is a major, like maybe the biggest piece, even though we've seen Josh Williams really kind of rise to the occasion as a bit of a renaissance man, right? Like he's their main blocker, he's their guy they've gone to when they've needed a few tough yards. But I've got to think Goodwin still has a role this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, before Goodwin went down, he was the starting back pretty much, right? And so then he goes down and Josh Williams steps into that place. I think Goodwin, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think Goodwin is to me the most explosive back because he's the fastest back. And obviously Emery can break tackles. Josh Williams had a 50-yard run last week. That's awesome. I still think Goodwin is the most explosive back, and for that reason, I like him on the field. Josh Williams is obviously good in other areas, pass protection. John Emery can catch passes out of the backfield. They all contribute different things. So there's no, Leonard Fournette in this backfield, obviously, but to have him back at least gives you another weapon, another other instances where you can use him, and so that's what I'm excited for. I think it's a boost. I hesitate to say that it's this huge boost to the run game because I'm always of the belief that running backs are kind of a product of your offense to a degree, unless if you have those Heisman type guys. But still, it's good to get Goodwin back there. But everything else is same on the injury front. Is that correct? Right? I mean, no burns. Yeah, literally no major burns. Still, no. What else are we looking at here?
Garrett Dellinger
Um,
and Burns, those guys will get held. I mean, you've got a bye week next week, then you've got Bama, so that's essentially two more full weeks of rest. So yeah, I'm not. I would have been very surprised if they tried to rush guys back for this game when they could have just waited through the bye week. And I
yeah,
thought Goodwin might fit into that, but it sounds like
yeah,
Goodwin's completely ready to go.
yeah. So that's a rundown. I mean, honestly, knock on wood, it's a pretty short injury report, so that's good. Again, knock on wood. I knocked on my desk here, but all right, let's start looking at this Ole Miss game, Shay. When you look at it, I mean, on paper, obviously Lane Kiffin versus Brian Kelly, that alone is an interesting matchup. You get Ole Miss, just for everybody who doesn't know, 7-0, number 9 in the country. The wins have been against Kentucky. They've been against Auburn, Tulsa, Troy. So it hasn't been the most difficult schedule, but they have Zach Evans at running back. They have freshman at running back whose name is long and I forget. but Jackson Dart at quarterback. It's a good offense. The defense is up and down, but what do you think about this Ole Miss team and Saturday's game?
I still just think it starts and ends with the run game. I mean, look at the stats. Quinshon Judkins is a true freshman, rushed for 720 yards and 10 touchdowns on the year already. I don't even know if LSU's got that combined with their running back room. But then Zach Evans, everybody knows Zach Evans from his recruitment, former 5-star, ends up at Ole Miss, I guess, after TCU.
Yeah.
But he's rushed for 106.05 and 7, so he's not far off. And Jackson Dart, Matty B, the quarterback, with approaching 400 yards. He's not scored, but will take off and run, averaging about 7, even with the sacks included. So I don't know, man. I mean, people think Lane Kiffin throwing the ball, going deep, all of that. I feel like this is a team this year that Kiffin has where he's done a really good job of embracing what they're really good at, which is running the football.
Yeah. I covered when I was covering North Texas and Lane Kiffin was at FAU. First of all, FAU in 2017, FAU and North Texas met twice that year. North Texas beat everybody else on their schedule except FAU, who beat them by legitimately 30 points both times they played. And they had Devin Singletary on that team. And they had a really strong run game. And that's where I first saw Lane Kiffin really start to just run the ball on teams. And it's carried over. He is such a good offensive mind that it doesn't matter where the talent is. He finds ways to accentuate that talent. And like you said, with Judkins and Evans, I mean, they ran the ball for 448 yards against Auburn. It was an incredibly poor performance from Auburn, first of all. But I mean, still to be able to run the ball for 450 yards on anybody in the SEC is impressive. And so, yeah, it starts with those two. I still think they have some talented receivers. Not for nothing, Jonathan Mingo is a quality player that can get open at times. Jordan Watkins for them also had 4 catches last week. So, they have some decent playmakers out there, but they run the ball. Literally, I wrote this on Wednesday. They run the ball 65% of the time, which is pretty much it's the second most of a non-service academy team. So, I mean, it's if you thought Auburn ran the ball a lot, if you thought Florida ran the ball a lot, this team runs the ball a lot, and they are third, I believe, in rush yards per game.
Yeah, and what Malik Heath is on the team. He used to play
Yeah.
at State, moved over. Um, Michael Trigg was a big time recruit coming out of high school, tight end. LSU was all over him. Ended up at Southern Cal. He transferred to Ole Miss, part of that Jackson Dart, the quarterback move. I believe he's out for the year though.
He
So
is. Yep, he's out for the year.
that's their top tight end, fourth most receptions on the team. He hadn't played in a couple weeks though, so obviously it was a pretty heavy part of the offense then. But
Yeah.
I guess for me, then it starts and ends with running the football. I just think that they're going to try to, and as Brian Kelly said, they're not going to run it right up the middle to where Jaquelin Roy and Mekhi Wingo and Penn and those guys can just stuff the box and make plays. I mean, they're going to hit the edge. They want to run it off the edge. They do it in a variety of ways. So this is a tough test. I think this is when you go back to the simplistic approach of football defensively. If you don't tackle this weekend, you're not going to win. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss
Don't
to me
tackle like you did Anthony Richardson on his 80-yard run. That's
exactly.
Brian Kelly's message.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, they keep it pretty simple as far as, play calling goes. I feel like it's not the most dynamic thing, but they're really efficient at it and they play really fast. That's another thing people need to know going into this game is they're third in the country in tempo. They're even faster than Tennessee. Tennessee is 7th in plays per minute. Ole Miss is 3rd. It's go ahead.
And it's the Bryles offense for both those guys, Heupel and
Mhm.
Kiffin. They're running the old Baylor offense. But do you think the tempo gave LSU trouble against Tennessee, or do you think LSU's defensive busts and deficiencies gave them trouble?
I think pace actually gave them some trouble against Tennessee, but the difference is obviously between Tennessee and Ole Miss is Tennessee has Hendon Hooker who can throw the ball around and those receivers. And so I think the pace was troublesome for LSU. It just was compounded with the fact that Hendon Hooker had, Hyatt and Brew McCoy and all these guys on the outside. Ole Miss will play fast, but a lot of their stuff will come in the same looks in the run game. And so I I am scared of that. I'm scared of Ole Miss playing fast and that LSU might still not be ready for that. But on the bright side, I think that they are more equipped to stop the run than they are to stop Hendon Hooker in the pass game. So that's going to be interesting.
Where do you rank their quarterback, Jackson Dart? He was at Southern Cal. He was
Yeah.
kind of one of the big, if not the big, transfer portal targets for people looking for quarterbacks in the offseason. But what he's Brian Kelly talked about this, that they've played Anthony Richardson, who's obviously a really big kid. Hendon Hooker's 6'4", 220 probably. He mentioned they'll play KJ Jefferson of Arkansas, who's the biggest of the bunch. Jackson Dart is also a big kid. Let's get a height and weight here. He is internet moving quick. 6'2", 220. So another thick kid. But Brian Kelly kind of said, yeah, look, he's physical and all that, but he can throw it better than all the other guys that we will have faced that are that body type. You agree? Is he better than? Can he throw it better than Hooker? Can he throw it better
I'm
than
not putting no, he's not better than Hooker, or in any facet to me. And the
better than
thing is,
Richardson?
yeah, he's better than Richardson. He's better than Richardson. Rogers is a better thrower of the football, not a better runner. So you'd have to go down the list there of teams. I mean, Robbie Ashford, he's obviously better than, but still,
You think he's
it's a
better than
hard.
Jordan Travis,
Ooh, no, I'm not
Florida
putting him
State's
over.
quarterback?
Yeah, I'm not putting him over Jordan Travis.
Okay, so our game that we've whittled down is this is the second best quarterback LSU will have faced.
Hendon Hooker's better. Jordan Travis is better, and then Will Rogers might be better. So it's in that conversation. I think Will Rogers is probably better. So and that's the thing, and that's to kind of get to a more big picture preview of this game, or my thought going into this game is LSU has been tested multiple times by multiple different styles of offense. Obviously, none the exact same as this, what they're going to face, but LSU has played the air raid. They've played three running backs from Florida State. They've played against run-heavy teams in Auburn and Florida, and I feel like they're really well tested going into this, and there's a reason why they're favored. And so that gives me a lot of confidence in Matt House and this defense to say, all right, they haven't been perfect in SEC play. They've had their ups, they've had their downs, but I really believe that they at this point are not only more tested, but they are more experienced in what they want to do and what works in the SEC than what Ole Miss is. Because like I said coming in, Ole Miss has really only been tested by Kentucky. Like that's really the only game that they've been pushed in, and that game was pretty ugly, and they could have or should have lost that game. Other than that, you got like the Troy results, cool, the Tulsa results, okay, and the Auburn result last week was pretty unimpressive. So I like from a strength of schedule standpoint where LSU sits at the right now, and that's probably why a lot of people like them in this game.
You a little surprised at all that everybody, whether it's the sharps, whether it's the respected national pundits, everyone's jumping on LSU in this game.
I'm
The
a little
line
surprised.
swung in a big way.
It feels like a lot of people, and I wrote this in the final line story. It feels like a lot of people are taking that LSU Florida game and just acting like that's the new LSU, like acting like that's what they're going to be this week. I mean, the total was set at 67. It got up to 68 at one point. Like before last week, if I would have told you an LSU game was at 68 for the total, we would have been like, is LSU losing that game like 58 to 10? Like there's no way that they were hitting that. But because of last week, because they scored 45 on Florida and they, looked good doing it, I feel like a lot of people are like, all right, this is LSU's figured it out. And I hesitate. I hesitate to say that they've completely figured it out.
Yeah, and I was talking to Wilson Alexander at the Advocate yesterday. We were waiting for Kelly to start, and we were talking about the game and everybody jumping on LSU right now. And I kind of said how you just said. It's like it is which LSU are we getting? But it's not like they've played. What are they, 5-2? It's not like
Yeah.
they've played 7 games and it's a 50-50 split on this like Jekyll and Hyde offense. It's every single game they started slow and got behind, except one, and that was the one where they scored 6
Six.
touchdowns on 6 possessions and didn't even have to punt till the fourth quarter. So Yes, that's the most recent one, so we've got some recency bias here probably, but I'd have to think that they took something away from that game that gives them a little bit of continuity in the first half.
Yeah,
Like you
that's
can't I don't think they're going to go all the way back to we're losing 21 nothing and can't get the offense moving.
no, and that the biggest thing was obviously the development of the pass game. I mean, that's the biggest thing. You get Kayshawn involved, you get Malik involved. If Ole Miss now, I don't think Ole Miss is a great defense, but they're not worse or much worse than Florida or Auburn or even Tennessee. So it's going to be an aggressive defense Ole Miss plays, but now they have film of what LSU succeeds against, right? So I don't think they're going to come out in the same coverages that Florida did. I don't think they're going to be as passive at times as Florida was. So teams now have seen LSU's offense work to a degree. So if you're Mike Denbrock and Brian Kelly, you have some more work to do to now continue to evolve because that's all everything is with scouting and everything. So yeah, I agree with you. It's I hesitate. That's my hesitation right now, right? Is that everybody's getting on LSU because of the performance last week when the Auburn game was right there. The Tennessee game was right there. Like even the Mississippi State first half was right there. It's like all these signs that they're not perfect are still there. So that's gonna be interesting. Do you want to get into what we're watching for?
Let's do it. I guess I kind of already talked about Ole Miss running the ball. I'd like to see LSU's defense be able to stop the run. I honestly think this. It seems, and I've bought in, so I'm going against my own logic here, that LSU is a team that's going to have to pass to set up the run, and that the run is more or less something that can move the chains in short yardage situations or close it out for them. I'd be interested to see if they can find consistency in the run game from start to finish. So that's one thing I'm looking for. It's like you've got Goodwin back. Josh Williams is playing the best he's played since he's been at LSU. John Emery's healthy. Noah Cain's available. Like, can you do something in the run game in a way to keep the Ole Miss offense from just being on the field all night long, right? Like, you're not going to go 6 possessions and score 6 touchdowns out of the gate again. Like, that's not going to happen. And I'm not saying that it's just not going to happen. The odds are stacked against you in that. You've
Yeah.
done it one time. I'm not sure how many teams in college football have scored 6 touchdowns in the first 6 possessions of the season. I'd like to see them have some sort of balance between run and pass that doesn't just happen in the fourth quarter. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on. But again, with the way the O line is blocked and them obviously needing to throw the football to kind of keep the defense honest and keep them out of the box. Gosh, maybe they'll have to continue to throw it to set up the run, but I'd just like to see them have some semblance of balance coming out of out of the first half. Let's say into halftime.
Yeah. Um, I'll go with the tackling of the secondary. Heck, and the linebackers. I'll say the tackling of the defense in general, but especially with I think Ole Miss is able to pop these runs on the outside at times, and with Jackson Dart as well. When he keeps it, they have a lot of like sweep motion type stuff to the edge. They throw some screen passes on the outside. So I mean the corners are gonna have to tackle Garner, Bernard. All these guys are gonna have to tackle Brooks, Ward. That's probably the most interesting thing, but I included the linebackers in there because I think Greg Penn is going to have his hands full and Michael Baskerville as well. So that group's going to have to tackle really well this week. And obviously I think you can say that every single week that they need to tackle well, but Ole Miss's running game is literally one of the best in the country. So yeah, you really have to tackle well.
Yeah, and Judkins is a beat. Like everyone knows, who's kind of a casual football follower, what Zach Evans is about.
Yeah,
He was the number one running back. He's bounced schools around when he's been out there and actually healthy and playing. He's unbelievable. But Judkins has been on fire, and he's 6 foot 220 as a true freshman. So the guy's a load to bring down. So I'm with you on the tackling. And they're different. Him and Evans are different kind of players, so it just makes it all the more difficult.
yeah. All right, players to watch. Breakout candidates, one on each side of the ball. You can go first.
Well, I got off the Keishon Butte train last
Yeah,
week and told him he had to prove it to me, and he did. Um,
you can get back on. It's always welcoming.
I'm getting back on the Butte train this week. I think he has the biggest game of anyone on LSU's offense, not counting Daniels because he obviously has to throw it to Butte. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Kelly just said that Butte turned a real corner in the Florida week, and he raised his level at practice. That raised the level. Like Kayshawn talked about in an interview this week, where he was like, "I raised my level, and I'm not a big vocal guy, leader out at practice, but if they see the work I'm putting in, despite the season I've had and how frustrating it's been, then it's going to bleed to the rest of the guys." I think that wide receiver room still looks to Kayshawn as the leader. And look, 2 years ago in Tiger State, last time Ole Miss came to Tiger Stadium, Kayshawn put up about 8,000 yards and 25
Billy.
touchdowns in the game and broke the SEC single game receiving record, and that was with Max Johnson. So I think that if Jaden can just continue to get the ball out to the receivers, I thought Denbrock did a good job of putting Kayshawn in positions where he could get the football and make some plays after contact and in space. So, yeah, I'm back on the Butte train.
I mean, just real quick, seeing his halftime speech. Like you said, you can tell whenever we talk to him, he's not a big vocal guy. Like he's not this rah rah guy. He's not gonna talk your ear off even in private. Like he's not that guy. To watch him at halftime, talk to the team that way, it wasn't long, but you could just tell it was poignant, and so that made you feel good. You're like, this guy is not only bought in, but he is a legitimate leader on this team. So that's good, which we've heard and we've known, but to see that video was awesome. All right, I'm gonna go Brian Thomas. Give me Brian Thomas stock. I think he's gonna make a couple plays as the second or third receiver that we kind of saw against Florida. Maybe he's pissed off that Florida call got called back, but give me Brian Thomas there. I was going to go with like Jack Best just purely off punt returnings. I think he has a clean punt returning game if it is him. If they put Greg Clayton back there, I'm not going to make him my breakout player, but give me Brian Thomas as my offensive player.
You cannot choose a breakout player who might not even be playing in the spot. We'll have to see if
Oh, that's right.
Jack Best gets
That's
put back
right.
out there.
That we didn't address that in the injury report.
Well, they said that Besh has been practicing. He's got that
Yeah.
strain in his back that they said flares up and flared up when he got hit on that play. So I don't know. We'll see. Kelly did not say whether or not it would be Besh or whether it would be Greg Clayton. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. All right, defense. I'm gonna steal this one before you can take it. I'm just gonna take Harold Perkins and just run with it again. I feel like I've said his name a couple times, but it's tough because I think Brian Kelly makes a lot of sense. He makes a ton of sense whenever, and I talked about it plenty of times before. He's not gonna play inside linebacker. Every LSU fan's like, oh, just put him at inside linebacker. A bench Greg Penn and put him at linebacker. It's like it doesn't work that way. I've said it the entire season. They have him in a role to where he can just attack. He can just play. He doesn't have to think. You're just gonna rush the passer. You're gonna spy the passer. You're gonna go make plays. Now the hard part is, and Brian Kelly talked about it, when they're nickel, they're pretty much set. They have two inside linebackers. They have B.J. Ojolari. They have Ollie Gay on defensive ends. There's no spot for Harold Perkins here. So where do you put him? Where do you fit him in? And that's what I think is going to be a really interesting thing to watch, is where they put him in. And while I feel like, yes, you want to have Penn and Baskerville probably at your inside linebacker spots, I think there are times where you can live with maybe one inside linebacker and have kind of Harold Perkins as a rover. So that's going to be interesting to me to see how they utilize him and how they use those packages. But regardless, I think he makes a couple plays. Give me Harold Perkins.
I'm going to roll Greg Penn. I think Greg Penn is going to have the biggest game of the year so far. Baskerville talked about it this week. He can lay the wood. He's out there because he can be a run stopper, but this is also a team that likes to run it, like we talked about, and be a guy who can get out to the edge, make tackles in space, kind of a sideline guy. I think he's going to be out there a good bit. So for me, I'm watching Greg Penn as much as I've watched him in any game this season. I think it's paramount he has a big game.
One more from me. Ollie Gay has not been the pass rusher that I think a lot of people wanted him to be. but he's been decent against the run. If you look at his Pro Football Focus, grades, whatever. If you just watch the games, he's clearly out there because he can stop the run better than Savion Jones, which we've talked about on this podcast before. He's gonna have to prove it. If he can't play at a high level in this game, I will be disappointed. So Ali Gay needs to be good in this one. So there you go. There are the breakout candidates from us, and we'll wrap this up with some predictions and overall thoughts. You do well, not specific scores. We'll have those later in the story. But do you think LSU gets it done?
I picked them to win this game before the year. I do think there's some obvious fool's gold in Tennessee, or excuse me, Ole Miss being 7-0
Yeah,
and a top 8 team. I don't think they're
me
that.
neither.
What makes me nervous is that everyone's picking LSU and that the line swung to LSU and that
Yeah,
I know Brian Kelly said this. I asked him, I said, do you think you had a good week of practice? And he kind of laughed and said, you're asking the wrong guy because my standards for what they need to do are up here,
yeah.
and they're not quite there yet. But he said the practice was good enough to beat Ole Miss. Was it to his standard? No. Are the guys understanding that? Yes. But at home, 2:30, I think the crowd will be into it. This is a big if. If LSU doesn't give the game away on special teams, I think they'll win. And that sounds very easy if any fan of not LSU is listening to the podcast and they're like, don't give it away on special teams. All right, y'all should win then. Oh, au contraire. If they can
Yeah.
not give it away on special teams, I think that they'll win.
I think that's a really good point. I think that's a point. It's an under 3 point spread for a reason. If there is a muffed punt, if there is a blocked field goal, if you allow Ole Miss to return a kick to the 30, like it will swing the game. It will swing the game. It's too hard to get Ole Miss off the field consistently. Um, I think I like you said. I think Ole Miss's number 9 and number 7, wherever they are in the country, 7-0 start. I think a lot of it's fool's gold. But at the same time, how much do I believe LSU's offensive performance over Florida was fool's gold? Fool's gold. It's weighing out what's real and what's not for me with this game, and so that's why I hesitate to like. I would never play anything on the spread. I wouldn't even think about like betting LSU to cover. I wouldn't bet Ole Miss money line or anything like that. It's just too tough for me to really gauge. I'll stick with my I guess homerism if you want to call it. I was never a homer at North Texas, but now that I'm here at LSU, I just can't. I don't pick against LSU for some reason. But I'm gonna take LSU here. I don't have a score in mind, but I think LSU at home will get the job done. And like you said, if they can just not shoot themselves in the foot, they'll have a good shot.
It's a big ask.
It's a huge ask. It's a huge ask, especially in college football. Just in general, college football teams continue to shoot themselves in the foot. But all right, that's it. We got through the pod, Friday morning pod. Go ahead.
I'll close out by saying this. I don't want to bang on Ole Miss. And I think that you can be a good football team and also not have played anybody.
Yes.
So I do think Ole Miss is talented.
Yeah.
It is going to be a tough game.
Yeah. No. I mean, again, on paper, I know maybe schedules and Kentucky beat Mississippi State if you want to weigh all that or whatever. In theory, to me, Florida State, Mississippi State, Tennessee are better than anybody that Ole Miss has played, which is basically just Kentucky. And then you get Florida I put Florida, not too far behind. So it's just we've seen LSU play these teams, win, and then win some of them, lose some of them. I think going into this game, they're just really well tested, and they know what they are at this point, and they are starting to hit their stride. So as much as I don't believe that they're going to score on their first 6 drives and average 9 yards per play on those drives, I think they are starting to hit their stride regardless. So I think LSU can get it done. All right. Yep, there you go. We'll put that in the graphic. Shea picks LSU to win if they don't turn the ball over on special teams or shoot themselves in the foot. So, All right, that's all we have for y'all today. We hope y'all enjoyed it. Leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you are listening, on Spotify, on Apple, anything like that. If you're watching on the YouTube, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all the support. Leave us a like, comment, share it with a friend. If you have an LSU friend or an Ole Miss friend, send it over to them. And yeah, for Shea Dixon, I'm Matthew Bruni. We thank y'all for joining us, and we'll talk to y'all later.